They say to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But what if your greatest enemy shares your bed, your home, and your name? Lily was the perfect wife, the silent partner, the woman in the shadows. Tonight, her husband forced her to be the help. He wanted to humiliate her. He didn't realize he was handing her the exact weapon she needed to destroy him. By the end of the night, the waitress would own the room and the guests would be on their feet. But not for the reason he ever imagined. The crystal glasses felt unnaturally heavy in Lily Thorne's hands. Each one represented a small, crushing weight, adding to the load she'd been carrying for 7 years. The house, her house, or so the deed technically suggested, was ablaze with light and sound, but she existed only in its shadows. Another champagne, darling. A woman with a laugh like breaking glass trilled not at Lily but through her. Lily murmured, "Of course," her voice so soft it was stolen by the jazz music. She pivoted her plain black shoes, the ones she usually gardened in, squeaking shamefully on the polished marble floor. This was Mark's night. Mark Thorne, her husband, the man of the hour, the rising star of Aperture Technologies, the charismatic genius. He was across the room, holding court by the grand piano, his voice a smooth, confident baritone that wrapped around the guests. He was telling the Helios story, again, the story of how he had single-handedly developed the revolutionary AI software that was about to make Aperture billions. Lily's stomach clenched. His story, his genius. An hour ago, this night had been different. Lily had been in her bedroom, putting the final touches on her makeup. She'd chosen a conservative but elegant navy blue dress. She felt a small nervous flutter. She hated these parties, hated the fake smiles, and the way Mark's colleagues looked at her with polite pity, the mousy, uninteresting wife of a titan. But Mark had insisted, "The entire board will be here, Lily. Just try to look presentable." Then the manufactured chaos began. Mark had stormed into the bedroom, his face a mask of theatrical rage. The caterers, can you believe it? They sent the wrong appetizers. The wrong ones, I told them. No shellfish, I fired them. All of them. Lily's heart sank. Mark, no. The party starts in 30 minutes. What are we going to do? He hadn't missed a beat. He'd walked to the closet and pulled out the simple black cotton apron the house cleaner Maria sometimes wore. He tossed it onto the bed. "What is this?" Lily had whispered. "It's a problem, Lily, and you're going to solve it," he'd said, his voice dropping from theatrical to the cold, flat tone he reserved just for her. "We can't look like fools. The bar is set up. The food is in the warmer. You'll serve. You'll be discreet. No one will even notice you." "Mark, I can't," she pleaded, the humiliation stinging her eyes. "These are your colleagues, your bosses. I'm your wife." He'd stepped close, gripping her chin. His signet ring dug into her skin. "No," he hissed. "You're the woman who lives in my house, eating my food. You contribute nothing. Your little computer hobby doesn't pay for this." He gestured around the opulent room. "Tonight you will be useful. You will put this on, you will serve the drinks, and you will not. Say a word. Do you understand me?" She had understood. The threat was unspoken, but clear. The alternative to obedience was a scaled-up version of the punishments she already endured, the silent treatment, the frozen bank accounts, the casual cutting cruelty. So she had put on the apron over her simple black t-shirt and slacks. The navy blue dress was still hanging on the door, a cruel reminder of the woman she was supposed to be. Now she was a ghost, refilling glasses, clearing plates, her eyes fixed on the floor. Mark's rival, a sharp-featured woman named Victoria Vance, deliberately stepped back and bumped into her. "Oh, goodness!" Victoria exclaimed as a full glass of red wine splashed onto the white rug. "You clumsy girl. Look at this mess." Lily knelt her cheeks, burning, blotting the stain with a cocktail napkin. "Mark, really," Victoria said loudly. "You should hire professionals. You get what you pay for." Mark drifted over, a plastic smile plastered on his face. He looked down at Lily on her hands and knees. "Victoria, I apologize. The help is just so inexperienced." He nudged Lily's shoulder with his expensive Italian loafer. "Get up, Lily. Stop making a scene and get a cloth from the kitchen." He called her Lily. Not darling, not my wife. Just Lily. The name dropped into the room with the finality of a spade of dirt on a coffin. The few guests who overheard it simply assumed Lily was the new maid's name. She fled to the kitchen, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold the cloth. She leaned against the stainless steel counter, taking deep, ragged breaths. The mask of calm she wore was cracking. She had been invisible for so long, but this was different. This was erasure. He hadn't just put her in an apron. He had put her in her place. A place so far beneath him that she was no longer even human. She was just the help. She closed her eyes, and for a second she saw a line of glowing green code in her mind. A complex algorithm she'd written last week. A line of code that worked. A line of code that was hers. "Get a grip," she muttered. She splashed cold water on her face, reapplied the mask of servitude, and picked up a fresh tray of appetizers. Mark wanted her to be useful. Fine. She would be useful. But as she walked back into the lion's den, a tiny cold ember of rage, long dormant, finally began to glow. The gilded cage had been built slowly, plank by plank, lie by lie. Lily hadn't even realized she was trapped until the door was locked, and Mark held the only key. They met in college. He was a business major, all charm and dazzling ambition. She was a computer science prodigy, hiding behind thick glasses and a curtain of mousy brown hair. He was the first person to see her. Not the shy girl, but the brilliant mind. "You're a genius, Lily," he'd whispered to her in the university library, looking at a program she'd written for fun, a program that learned and adapted. "You're going to change the world, and I'm going to help you." He became her shield. She hated presenting, hated the spotlight. He loved it. They were the perfect team. He was the face, the visionary. She was the architect, the engineer. He graduated and got a junior marketing job at Aperture. She worked from their tiny apartment coding. Her work was revolutionary. He would take her code, put it into a sleek PowerPoint, and present it as his own. "It's just simpler this way, baby," he'd assured her, kissing her forehead. "The corporate world, it's full of sharks. They'll eat you alive. Let me protect you. I'll handle the business. You just create." So she created. And he rose. The Helios project was her masterpiece. It wasn't just an AI, it was a predictive, self-correcting neural network. It could analyze market trends with 99% accuracy. It was worth billions. It took her 3 years of 18-hour days, fueled by coffee and a burning passion for the pure logic of it. Mark presented it to the Aperture board. They didn't just give him a promotion, they practically gave him the company. He was made executive vice president of innovation. They moved from the tiny apartment to the sterile marble and glass mansion, and the lock on the cage clicked shut. The partnership dissolved. Her hobby became a distraction. He took control of their finances. "It's easier for tax purposes, Lily. Let me handle the stress." He discouraged her from seeing her old college friends. "They're just jealous of our success, darling." He needed her to be small. The smaller she became, the bigger he felt. The more brilliant her code, the more he resented her for it. He needed to be the genius, and for him to be the genius, she had to be nothing. The final cruelest twist was her identity. Deep in the 1.4 million lines of Helios's core code, Lily had embedded a digital signature, a tiny, elegant piece of encrypted code that was unmistakably her. It was her one act of defiance, her one secret. She'd named it Codex. Mark, for all his bluster, was a terrible coder. He never would have found it. He'd sold the world a product he didn't even understand. Back in the living room, the party was reaching its peak. Lily moved on autopilot, her feet aching, her mind numb. She was clearing glasses near the fireplace when she heard Mark's voice, raised in false modesty. "No, Ben, you're too kind," Mark said to Ben Carter, a senior board member. Helios was a team effort, but, well, the core algorithm did come to me in a flash of inspiration. 3 a.m, I saw it, the whole structure. I barely made it to the computer in time. Ben Carter, a jowly man with a booming voice, clapped Mark on the back. "Brilliant, Mark. Simply brilliant. You are the future of this company. I keep telling the board we need to lock you down, make you COO. Mark's eyes glittered. This was it. The moment he'd been working for. "I'm just happy to contribute," Mark said, spotting Lily. His eyes hardened. He wanted her to hear this. "Success isn't just about work, Ben. It's about a stable home life. Knowing who is in charge. Maintaining discipline." He beckoned Lily over with a sharp, imperious flick of his fingers. Like calling a dog, she walked over her tray held in front of her like a shield. "My glass is empty," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. He held it out for her to take. He didn't look at her. He just kept talking to Ben. "You see, efficiency. It's all about efficiency and knowing your role." Lily took the glass. Her hand was steady. The glass was empty, but she felt the weight of it, the weight of the apron, the weight of 7 years of lies. As she turned to go to the bar, Mark's rival, Victoria Vance, stepped in front of her. Victoria, who was also a high-level executive, looked Lily up and down with a slow, contemptuous gaze. "You know, Mark," Victoria said, her voice a purr. "I'm not sure about this one." She reached out and plucked the name tag from the breast of the apron. Lily hadn't even realized it was there. It was a generic, "Hello, my name is" sticker left over from some office party. "She doesn't even have a name. You should at least give your servants names." Victoria crumpled the sticker and with a smirk dropped it onto Lily's tray. Lily looked at the crumpled paper. She felt the eyes of Ben Victoria and 6 other executives on her. She saw Mark's triumphant reptilian smile. This was the moment. The floor of the cage had just given way. She was falling, or she was flying. The numbness in her mind vanished, replaced by a crystalline Arctic clarity. The fear was gone, burned away by the cold fury. She looked up, not at Mark, but at Victoria. She smiled. It was a small, tight smile, completely devoid of warmth. "You're right," Lily said. Her voice, though quiet, was perfectly clear. It cut through the music. "A name is very important." She turned and walked away, leaving the crumpled sticker on the tray. She didn't go to the bar. She walked straight to the kitchen, took off the apron, and dropped it into the trash. Mark barely registered Lily's small act of defiance. He was too high on his own success, too intoxicated by the adulation. He saw her walk away and simply assumed she was fetching more ice, like a good, obedient little servant. His attention was immediately pulled to the front door. A hush fell over the room. The jazz music seemed to fade. A new guest had arrived. This wasn't one of Mark's colleagues. This wasn't a board member. This was Julian Vance, Julian Vance was a legend in Silicon Valley. He was the founder and CEO of Vance Capital, the multi-billion-dollar venture firm that had provided the seed money for Aperture Technologies. He was in effect the man who owned everyone in this room, including Mark. He was also, Lily knew with a jolt, Victoria Vance's uncle, though the two famously detested each other. He was a tall, imposing man in his late 60s, with a shock of white hair and eyes so sharp they seemed to X-ray everything they landed on. He did not smile. He simply observed. Mark, seeing his ultimate prize, practically flew across the room, his hand extended, his face split in a sycophantic grin. "Mr. Vance, what an incredible honor. I had no idea you were coming," Mark gushed. Julian Vance looked at Mark's extended hand for a long second before shaking it briefly. "Mark, good evening." His voice was a gravelly monotone. He wasn't here for pleasantries. His eyes swept the room, analytic and dismissive. This is amazing," Mark continued, flustered by the man's cold energy. "Can I get you a drink, food? Let me introduce you to the board." "I'm not here for the board," Vance said, cutting him off. "And I'm not here for a drink. I'm here for a person." Mark laughed nervously. "A person, sir? Well, they're all here, the best and brightest of Aperture." Vance turned his full attention to Mark. The party noise around them seemed to cease entirely. Everyone was watching. "Stop posturing, Mark. It's tiresome," Vance said. "My team has been in touch with your CEO, David Chen. David was supposed to arrange this meeting, but since he's conveniently stuck in Singapore, I've come myself. I'm here to meet Codex." The name hit the room like a sonic boom. Mark's smile froze, cracking at the edges. His blood ran cold. "Codex, sir. Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you," Vance said. "You're the head of the division. You must know who it is. Codex, the architect of Helios. I want to meet them. Now." Mark's mind was a white-hot panic. Codex. How did he know that name? Lily. It had to be Lily. She had done something. She had talked. "Sir," Mark stammered, trying to regain control. "Codex is just an internal project name. A team mascot, if you will. The work is mine. I am the architect of Helios." Julian Vance sighed a sound of profound disappointment. "You're going to make this difficult, aren't you? I had hoped you were smarter than this. But you're just a suit, a PowerPoint." Vance raised his voice, slightly addressing the room. "My apologies for interrupting the festivities. My firm, Vance Capital, is the primary investor in Aperture, and Aperture's entire future valuation is based on the Helios project." He turned back to Mark. "And the Helios project, as it turns out, is a masterpiece of engineering. My own cybersecurity team, the best in the world, spent the last month trying to find a back door. They couldn't. But they did find a signature. An encrypted digital signature buried so deep in the core code it was practically part of its DNA. A signature that identifies the true creator, Codex. Mark was visibly sweating. That's a security feature. A watermark I designed." "Liar," Vance said, his voice flat. He held up a tablet. The screen showed a complex string of data. "We traced the primary source commits for the core algorithm, the final brilliant stroke of genius. They didn't come from the Aperture mainframe. They didn't come from your office, Mark." He looked around the room, then pointed to the ceiling. "They came from an IP address registered to this house, right here, for the last 3 years. Now I will ask you one more time, and I advise you to think very, very carefully about your answer. Who is Codex?" Every eye in the room was on Mark, his colleagues, the board members, his rival Victoria. He was trapped. The entire edifice of his life, his career, His very identity was about to crumble. He frantically scanned the crowd. He was looking for Lily. He would drag her out. He would force her to deny it. He would say she was a disgruntled wife, that she was crazy, that she had stolen the code from him. But Lily was nowhere to be seen. She wasn't by the bar. She wasn't clearing glasses. She wasn't in the kitchen. He was alone. I don't know what you're talking about, Mark whispered, his bravado completely gone. Wrong answer, Vance said, his face hardening. He pulled out his phone. As of this moment, Vance Capital is filing an injunction to freeze all of Aperture's assets, pending a full investigation into intellectual property fraud. The board will be notified in 10 minutes. You, Mark, will be named as the primary subject of the investigation. You've built your career on a lie, and I'm going to enjoy tearing it down brick by brick. No! Mark shouted a desperate animal sound. No, wait, please, I can explain. I'm done listening to you, Vance said. I'm here for the genius, not the thief. I am right here. The voice came from the top of the grand staircase. Lily stood on the landing. She had changed. The mousy brown hair was pulled back into a severe, elegant bun. The simple black t-shirt and slacks were gone. She was wearing the navy blue dress, the one she'd meant to wear as Mark's wife. But she wasn't wearing it as a wife. She was wearing it as armor. She had no makeup on. Her face was pale, but her eyes, the eyes that Mark had never truly looked into, were blazing with a cold intellectual fire. She descended the stairs one slow, deliberate step at a time. The only sound in the dead, silent room was the click of her heels on the marble. Mark stared, his mouth open. This was not the woman he knew. This was not his mouse. "Lily, what are you doing?" He hissed, a frantic, desperate edge to his voice. "Get back to the kitchen. You're embarrassing me." She didn't even look at him. Her gaze was locked on Julian Vance. She reached the bottom of the stairs and walked directly to him, a small, unassuming woman who now commanded the entire room. The guests, executives, board members, rivals parted for her, as if she were royalty. She stopped a foot in front of Vance. She looked at the tablet in his hand. "Your team is good," she said, her voice clear and steady. "But they didn't break the encryption. I let them in." Vance's sharp eyes widened just slightly. "You..." "What?" "The signature," Lily explained. "It's not just a watermark. It's a honey trap, a beacon. It's designed to detect any unauthorized high-level breach. When your team triggered the first protocol, I was notified. I analyzed the intrusion signature. I recognized your team's digital footprint from their work on the OSP framework. I decided to grant them read-only access to the signature file. I wanted to be found." Julian Vance was, for the first time in his public life, utterly speechless. He stared at her. Then a slow, deep smile of pure admiration spread across his face. He had come looking for an engineer. He had found a grandmaster. "My God," he whispered. "It's you." Lily finally turned her head and looked at her husband. Mark was ashen, his body vibrating with rage and terror. "She's lying," he shrieked, his voice cracking. She's my wife. She's unstable. She's trying to ruin me. She doesn't know anything about code. Tell them, Lily. Tell them it's a joke." This was the moment Lily had been waiting for. The moment the cage door was open and her jailer was on his knees. She looked at Mark, her expression not one of anger, but of simple, objective assessment. Like a scientist studying a failed experiment. "For 7 years," she said to the room, "I have been the silent partner. I was the architect, and he," she gestured to Mark, "was the face. I am the woman who wrote 1.4 million lines of code in the server room in our basement. I am the woman who designed the predictive algorithm. I am the woman who built Helios from scratch while my husband took my work, put it in his presentations and told the world it was his. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Ben Carter looked like he was going to be sick. Victoria Vance, however, was watching Mark's destruction with undisguised, rapturous glee. She's lying. Mark tried again, but the words were hollow. Everyone in the room could see the truth. It was in Mark's panic and in Lily's terrifying calm. Mr. Vance, Lily continued, turning back to the billionaire. My husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, is correct about one thing. He is the head of his division, and in that role, he is guilty of the most egregious corporate fraud in your company's history. He didn't just take credit, he actively suppressed the asset. Me. She then did something that sealed Mark's fate forever. She walked over to the grand piano. Sitting on top of it was Mark's briefcase, which he'd left there when he went to schmooze. Mark always liked to be prepared, Lily said. He has a copy of the full Helios source code on a hard drive in here. He likes to carry it around. It makes him feel important. Before Mark could move, she'd clicked the briefcase open and retrieved a small silver hard drive. The code on this drive, she said, holding it up, is a copy. But the original code, the master file, is not on Aperture's servers. It never was. Aperture has been running a beta build for 2 years. The final optimized and infinitely more powerful version, she smiled, is on a secure server keyed to my biometrics in a vault in Switzerland. What Aperture has is a toy. What I have is the weapon. Julian Vance actually laughed, a single sharp bark of delight. Mark Thorne didn't just steal the code. He'd stolen it badly. He didn't even have the real thing. You, Mark spluttered, lunging for the hard drive. You bitch, I'll kill you! He never made it. Julian Vance's bodyguard, a mountain of a man who had been standing silently by the door, moved with impossible speed. He grabbed Mark's arm, spun him around, and pinned him against the piano with a sickening thud. Don't move! The bodyguard growled. The party was over. The silence that followed was absolute. The guests stood frozen champagne glasses halfway to their mouths, witnesses to the most brutal corporate execution they had ever seen. Lily calmly walked over to Mark, who was struggling uselessly in the bodyguard's grip, his face pressed into the piano keys. She looked down at him. This is the part you never understood, Mark, she said, her voice conversational, as if explaining a difficult concept to a child. You thought the code was the asset, but the code is just data. I am the asset, the person who can create the code, and you tried to make her serve drinks. She looked up at the stunned crowd. Her eyes found Ben Carter, the board member. Ben, she said. He flinched. You were about to recommend this man for COO. You and the rest of the board have been shareholders in a company whose sole multi-billion-dollar asset was not only stolen, but was being systematically abused and humiliated by your star executive. You didn't just fail in your due diligence. You failed to see the genius right in front of you because she was wearing an apron. Ben Carter's face went purple. He had no answer. Then Julian Vance stepped forward, his eyes gleaming. He gently took the silver hard drive from Lily's hand. Ms. Thorne, he said, his voice full of a new, profound respect. I came here tonight to find Codex. I was prepared to offer Codex a position as the head of my new R&D division at Vance Capital. A $10 million signing bonus and complete autonomy. Mark, his face still smashed against the piano, let out a strangled sob. Lily considered the offer. That's a very generous offer, Mr. Vance. But, he prompted, knowing there was a but. But it's not enough, Lily said simply. Vance raised an eyebrow. Go on. Your $10 million is a nice gesture, but the Helios patent, the real one, is worth conservative estimates of $50 billion over the next decade. I am not giving that up for a signing bonus. She laid out her terms, her voice as crisp and precise as her code. First, you will not be filing an injunction against Aperture. You will be initiating a hostile takeover. Your firm will buy out the board starting tonight. Your niece, she nodded to a pale-faced Victoria, can help you. I'm sure she'd be happy to. You will install a new board, and I will be its chairperson. Second Mark Thorne, she said, looking at the top of her husband's head, will be fired. Publicly. For cause. You will file a civil suit against him for corporate fraud and misrepresentation. You will take everything from him. This house, his cars, his stock options. You will leave him with nothing but the suit he's wearing. I want him to know what nothing truly feels like. Third, she continued, I will not be head of R&D. I will be the chief technology officer and majority shareholder of the new Aperture Technologies. My signing bonus will be a 51% stake in the company I just saved. The real Helios code will be transferred from my vault to Aperture's servers only when the ink is dry. She held his gaze. That is my offer. You get me? You get Helios and you get to clean house. Or I walk. I take my code to your biggest competitor by morning. Your choice. Julian Vance stared at her. The entire room held its breath. Mark had stopped struggling, realizing he was no longer a player in his own life. He was just collateral. Finally, Vance extended his hand. Ms. Thorne, you are a terrifyingly brilliant woman. I accept. Welcome to the company, Madam Chairperson. As Lily shook his hand, a strange thing happened. Julian Vance, a man who commanded presidents and kings, was standing. As a sign of respect, Ben Carter, the board member, slowly, shakily got to his feet. Then another executive stood, and another. One by one, every guest in the room, the colleagues who had pitied her, the rivals who had mocked her, the board members who had ignored her, stood up. They weren't standing for the wife. They weren't standing for the help. They were standing for Codex. They were standing for the new queen. The room was filled with the sound of scraping chairs and a new tense silence. It was the sound of a power shift so sudden and so total that no one dared to speak. Lily surveyed the room. She saw the fear in Ben Carter's eyes, the calculating respect in Victoria's, and the abject terror in the faces of Mark's other sycophants. They were all already repositioning themselves, their minds racing to figure out how to survive this new regime. Her regime. Mr. Vance. Lily said, her voice now possessing an effortless authority. I believe you have my husband. Vance nodded to his bodyguard. The large man hauled Mark to his feet. The fight was gone from him. He was a hollow shell. His expensive suit rumpled his face, slick with sweat and tears. Lily, he whispered, his voice broken. Please, don't do this. We're married. The house, the money, it's half mine. You can't. Lily allowed herself one last, cold look at the man she had once loved. You're mistaken, Mark. You made that very clear to me yourself, just this morning. You said you bought the house. You made the money. You put everything in a separate trust 2 years ago. A trust I couldn't touch. She turned to Vance. A trust I'm sure your lawyers will find was funded by fraudulent earnings, making it ripe for seizure. You wanted everything to be yours, Mark. And now, it is. All the liability. All the fraud. It's all yours. The brilliance of her long-term planning settled on the room. She hadn't just been a coder, she had been a prisoner, and prisoners have nothing but time to plan their escape. She had let him build his own trap. As for us being married, Lily continued, I had my lawyer file for divorce this afternoon. The petition was filed at 4:00 p.m. She checked her watch. He should be serving you with the papers. Right about now. On cue, the doorbell rang. The party guests parted as a confused-looking man in a suit stood at the door holding a thick manila envelope. "Mark Thorne?" the man asked. The bodyguard shoved Mark forward. The man placed the envelope in Mark's limp hand. "You've been served." It was the final, devastating blow, a master stroke of timing. You planned this," Mark breathed, staring at the envelope. "The party. You knew Vance was coming." "No," Lily said. "I didn't know he was coming. That was just a bonus." She picked up the crumpled, "Hello, my name is" sticker from the silver tray where Victoria had dropped it. "I planned this the moment you handed me that apron. You gave me the one thing I didn't have the rage. You wanted to humiliate me into submission, but instead, you humiliated me into action. You should have known better, Mark. You don't hand a weapon to the person who built your arsenal." She turned away from him, her business with him concluded. He was no longer her problem. He was Julian Vance's problem. "Mr. Vance," she said, "my lawyers will be at your office at 8:00 a.m. to finalize the details. I trust you and your associate can handle the cleanup here." "With pleasure, Ms. Thorne." Vance replied, his smile genuine. Lily looked at the guests, who were still standing, watching her with a mixture of awe and terror. "The party's over," she announced. "Please see yourselves out. And Ben." Ben Carter jumped. "Yes, Miss Thorne. Arrange a full board meeting for 10:00 a.m. I want everyone's resignation on my desk before the meeting starts. They can reapply for their positions. To me. That is all." She walked to the front door, pausing only to retrieve her coat from the closet. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She could feel the weight of their eyes on her back. She stepped out into the cool night air, alone, free, and in control. The sound of Julian Vance's voice boomed from inside the house. "Mark, sit down. We need to discuss the terms of your surrender." But it already sounded very, very far away. Lily Thorne, the waitress, the mousy wife, was gone. Codex was just getting started. The 3 months that followed the party were not a victory lap. They were a war. The carcass of the old Aperture Technologies was rotten, and Lily Thorne, with Julian Vance's billions and Victoria Vance's ruthless efficiency, was tasked with the autopsy and the resurrection. It began the very next morning, at the 10:00 a.m. board meeting she had called. The long, polished mahogany table was full. The same executives who had watched her serve drinks now sat with their hands, folded, their faces pale. Ben Carter, at the head of the table, attempted a weak, conciliatory smile as Lily entered. She was not wearing a crimson power suit. She was wearing a simple dark grey turtleneck and slacks. She looked like an engineer, which to them was the most terrifying thing of all. She was flanked by Julian, and to everyone's shock, Victoria. "Good morning," Lily said. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the room. She remained standing. "I see you all brought your resignations." "Thank you." Ben Carter cleared his throat. "Lily Ms. Thorne, on behalf of the board, I want to say that we are appalled by Mark's deception. We are prepared to offer you a comprehensive package to make amends, and we hope you will consider staying on to guide the Helios." "Stop," Lily said. "It wasn't a request. You're talking again, Ben. And you're posturing, just like Mark." The colour drained from Ben's face. "You're all fired," Lily stated simply. "Your resignations are accepted effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. Your severance will be the legal minimum. Your stock options are void, as they were granted, based on fraudulent corporate performance." A man down the table, a VP of sales, sputtered, "You can't do this. We have contracts." "You have contracts based on a lie," Julian Vance interjected, his voice a low growl. "You were complicit through sheer willful incompetence. You celebrated the face and never once asked to meet the architect. Your stock was worthless yesterday. The only reason it has any value today is because she," he gestured to Lily, "is feeling generous. So I suggest you take your little box of desk photos and you leave." The room was silent. "Now," Lily continued, "two of you will be staying. Ben, Victoria." Victoria nodded, expecting this. Ben looked up, a pathetic flicker of hope in his eyes. "Victoria Vance. Lily announced is the new Chief Operating Officer. She is the only person in this room who was smart enough to know Mark was a fraud, even if she benefited from the chaos. I respect that. She will handle the business, I will handle the technology." She then turned her full cold attention to Ben Carter. "And you, Ben, you are the perfect embodiment of the old aperture. All talk, no substance. But you are connected. You know where the bodies are buried." I'll do anything," he whispered. "I know," Lily said. "You will not be an executive. You will not have a corner office. You will be in charge of legacy accounts. Your job is to travel the country, hat in hand, and personally apologize to every client Mark lied to. You will manage the transition. You will be polite. You will absorb their anger. And you will report directly to Ms. Vance. It is a humiliating, grinding, thankless job, but it is the only one you are qualified for. Do you accept? It was a fate worse than being fired. It was purgatory." "Yes," Ben said, his voice a rasp. "Yes, Miss Thorne. Good. The rest of you get out." The next 90 days were a blur of 20-hour workdays. Lily lived in the office, sleeping on a cot in the server room she had claimed as her new headquarters. She didn't just fire the sycophants. She surgically dismantled the toxic sales-driven culture Mark had built. She found the real engineers, the ones Mark had marginalized, the ones he'd stolen small ideas from, the ones who had been toiling in the basement on low-priority projects. Her first act was to triple their salaries and give them equity. Her second was to bring them all into a conference room, slide a pizza box onto the table and say, "Helios 1.0 was a toy. I want to build the real thing. I can't do it alone. Who is in?" They would have followed her into a volcano. There were battles. Victoria, as the new COO, was pragmatic and aggressive. She clashed with Lily constantly. "The launch has to be in 60 days, Lily," Victoria insisted, storming into the server room, a tablet in her hand. "The market is hungry. Our competitors are smelling blood. We have to show strength. The predictive algorithm is still drifting by 0.2%. Lily said, not looking up from her screen, her fingers a blur. "It's sloppy. We launch when it's perfect." "We don't need perfect, we need now," Victoria argued. "You're an engineer, Lily, but I'm a businesswoman. We will lose this company if you stay in your sandbox." Lily stopped typing. She spun in her chair. "You are a businesswoman, Victoria. I am the asset. You want to sell something. I want to build something that cannot be sold, only licensed. We are not launching a product. We are launching a standard. It has to be unbreachable. It has to be flawless. It needs another 30 days. We don't have 30 days. Then buy them for me," Lily said simply. Victoria stared at her. The sheer, unshakable confidence was infuriating and intoxicating. She finally let out a sharp laugh. "You're a shark, Lily, a quiet one. You just swim in deeper water. And you, Victoria, Lily replied, turning back to her screen, are loud. Now please be loud in the marketing department and let me work. Victoria left fuming, but she bought Lily the 30 days, and Mark's fate was a swift, silent execution. Julian Vance's lawyers had invoked the fraud and morality clauses in his contract. The trust he had so carefully built to shield his assets was seized as the direct proceeds of a criminal enterprise. The house, the cars, the stocks, all clawed back. He was last seen in the lobby of a high-powered law firm, begging for representation pro bono. He was in the end exactly what Lily had called him, a footnote. Then launch day arrived. The convention hall in San Francisco was packed. Thousands of journalists, investors, analysts, and competitors had come to see the train wreck. They had come to see Mark Thorne's folly burn. Lily stood backstage. For a second, the old fear returned. The feeling of being the mousy girl, the help. She could feel the weight of thousands of eyes. Victoria came up behind her. "They're sharpening their knives out there," she said, not unkindly. "I know," Lily whispered. "Good." Victoria said, a predatory glint in her eye. "Don't just win, Lily. Annihilate them. Leave no survivors." Lily looked at her, and a slow, cold smile touched her lips. She nodded. She walked onto the stage. The crimson suit was a deliberate choice. It was the color of a warning. The murmuring of the crowd died. "For 3 years," she began, her voice ringing with a calm, digital precision. "You have been told a story about a man named Mark Thorne, a story of a flash of inspiration at 3 a.m, a story of a lone, charismatic genius." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "That story was a lie. A very good piece of marketing, but a lie nonetheless. Genius is not a flash. It is not charismatic. Genius is work. It is 18-hour days. It is 1,000,000 lines of code. It is the quiet, thankless, invisible persistence of the person who actually builds the thing." She walked to the center of the stage. "My name is Lily Thorne. I am the creator of Helios, and I was told my place was in the shadows. I was told to be invisible. I was told to be useful." She let that word hang in the air. "But the funny thing about shadows is, that's where all the real work gets done. My predecessor sold you a product, a good one to be sure, but it was a beta build, a toy. He was a salesman. I am an architect." The massive screen behind her lit up. It wasn't a logo. It wasn't a product shot. It was a flowing, beautiful, terrifying river of glowing green code, and at its center, the elegant, unmistakable Codex signature. "This," she announced, "is Helios 2.0. This is the real thing, and it is not for sale." The room erupted. It was a shockwave. She proceeded to give a 40-minute, technically dense and utterly spellbinding presentation. She didn't use marketing slogans. She showed them the code. She ran live real-time analytics. She showed them how her algorithm had predicted the last 3 micro-recessions to the day. She showed them the unbreachable security. By the time she was done, the audience was on its feet, not in polite applause. It was a roar. Later that night, the launch party was in full swing in the new Aperture headquarters. The old stuffy mansion had been sold. The new office was an open-plan warehouse, all steel glass and whiteboards, buzzing with the energy of the engineers, her engineers who were now the rock stars. Lily was in her office, a simple glass-walled room, watching them celebrate. There was a frantic knock on her door. A young intern, a brilliant coder from Stanford named Sarah, peeked in her face, pale with panic. "Ms. Thorne, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Lily looked up. "Breathe, Sarah. What is it?" "The catering," she stammered on the verge of tears. The main order. I was in charge of it. They sent the wrong appetizers. They sent the shellfish. I know Mr. Carter's old hospitality memo said shellfish allergies are a Class A liability, and that it's a fireable offense, and, oh God, the investors are all here. I've ruined everything. Lily stared at her. The intern was trembling, ready to have her career end on her first big night. Slowly, Lily stood up. She walked over to Sarah, and to the intern's shock, put a steadying hand on her shoulder. First, Lily said, her voice soft but firm, you will never ever apologize for a canapé again. Not in this company. Second, Ben Carter's memos are irrelevant. She smiled, a small, genuine smile. It's just food, Sarah. It's not a crisis. But what do I do? You're an engineer, aren't you? Lily asked. Sarah nodded. Then you know a crisis is a bug in the system, a failed protocol. This is just an appetizer, so we'll write a patch. Lily walked with Sarah out into the main party. She found the panicked catering manager. There's been a simple mix-up, Lily said calmly. It's fine. Send the bill to my office, and please add a 20% tip for your staff's hard work. The manager stared, relieved. Lily then turned to Sarah. Now for the patch. She pulled out her phone, opened a delivery app, and ordered 30 pizzas. The investors are here for the code, Sarah, Lily said, putting her phone away. The engineers will be thrilled to get pizza, and any investor who complains about not getting a tiny shrimp on a piece of toast is not an investor I'm interested in. Sarah looked at her eyes wide with a dawning realization. Thank you, Ms. Thorne. Go on, Lily said. Your brain is the most valuable asset in this room. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small over something so trivial. Now go join your team. You've earned it. As the intern hurried off, a new sense of confidence in her step, Lily looked out over the company she had built. The sound of her engineers laughing as the pizza arrived was more satisfying than any applause. She thought about the black apron, the spilled wine, the crushing weight of the silver tray. They were memories, but they were no longer chains. They were fuel. She had been freed from her cage, but she knew her real work was just beginning, ensuring no other genius would ever be forced into one again. Lily Thorne turned from the party, walked back to her office, and got back to work. She was, after all, an architect, and she had new worlds to build. That night, Lily learned a powerful lesson. Your value isn't determined by what people call you, but by what you build. Mark tried to reduce her to a servant, but he forgot that the person who builds the house knows exactly where all the weak points are. She wasn't just the help. She was the architect of his entire life, and she was the only one who knew how to tear it all down. What did you think of Lily's story? Do you think Mark got what he deserved? What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you loved this story and want to hear more tales of epic revenge and karma, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their own power. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single story.